Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from Multispeed Technologies, the Ask Noah show starts right now. This is the show where we came to do all the things on Linux they said couldn't be done and take your questions on how to do the same. The phone lines are open this hour to be a part of the program. It's a free call, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624, or send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. My name is Noah Chalai. I am your host. Delighted to be here with you as another episode of the Ask Noah show kicks off this hour. This is the first episode of the Ask Noah show as an independent broadcast. We're delighted to be here, absolutely thrilled. We have worked all week to make the necessary changes to our website and our streaming infrastructure and all of those things to make sure that you have a seamless experience. Of course, if you did not catch the show live or you're wondering where it is, it's all in one place now, asknoahshow.com. There you can have an absolutely outstanding, high-quality audio-only stream right from the play button at the top of the page. If you like to see the chat room and you like that video element, we have incorporated that too. Just scroll a little bit further down on the page, and there is the traditional streaming player. It's actually the exact same infrastructure that we had back with JB, so that should be a seamless transition for you as well. We also have incorporated a brand new spiffy web chat. So if you want to participate in the chat room, and that's been difficult for you to do in the past, no longer is it. You go to asknoahshow.com, click on launch the chat client, and a little web browser thing will load. I think it looks pretty cool. I'm a big fan of dark theme type stuff, and so you can join the conversation and add your voice. You don't have to create an account. We don't collect any data, none of that stuff. Later on, as I mentioned before, we are going to roll out a service where you can have it's essentially will be an IRC bouncer. So if you're familiar with the Quassel infrastructure, Quassel client, Quassel core, we are going to roll that out for the listeners of the Ask Noah show. It won't cost you anything. We're going to absorb all that cost because it's our way of giving back to you, the community. And you can use it for whatever you want. I mean, obviously, we ask you to join our channel and participate during the show, but you can use it as an IRC client to join any chat on any network. And the great thing about this system is our servers will keep you connected to your chat client, or to the chat servers rather. And so the web-based front-end client will just allow you to look back at what you've missed. So if you're familiar with, there's some IRC cloud service thing that they charge you a bunch of money. It's a ripoff. Don't do that. We're going to provide that to you, again, as a way to give back to the community. And that's really what I want to talk about this evening. I want to talk about, hello to the chat room. Everybody's saying hello. Hi, guys. I have it right up in front of me, so good to see you, XMN. Good to see you, Naylor. I want to talk about the community, and I want to talk about what it is that we as Linux users need to be focused on, need to be doing, because I tell you what, this past week has been a true example of a community effort. Being able to work with Chris and the team over at JB to make this handoff. Obviously, a bunch of people in the community have stepped up and said, hey, we know you need some infrastructure. We know you need some help. Can we step in? Can we help out? Absolutely. I would love that. And so we've gotten so many cool things that have come about from all of the people that have stepped up. And I really think we are sitting better than ever. But one of the people that I wanted to invite on the show is a longtime friend of mine and somebody I deeply, deeply respect. And if you're in the Linux community, you should know his name. Now, some of you probably know him by the name Big Daddy Linux. So Big Daddy Linux, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Noah. How are you?
Excellent, sir. Thanks for taking the time to be here.
I wouldn't miss it for the world.
So I guess kind of what I wanted to bring you on for, what I wanted to chat with you about is this idea of community and the Linux community. And what a lot of people don't know is something that you do every single week. And I wanted to start out and kind of talk about that because obviously what this show tries to do is to be the resource that is available to you once a week so that you can ask questions, you can get troubleshooting for free. Man, if I went through and billed all of the hours that I give away here on the air, it would just be astronomical. And I give that away for free, 1 hour a week, because I want to give back to the community. And you're doing something very simple or similar. But instead of answering questions per se, you just provide an opportunity for like-minded people to just come hang out. Nothing expected of them, nothing, you don't charge anything. It's just a community hangout, a place for Linux nerds to come together and chat about Linux. So tell me about that.
Well, Biddle, as we call it, Big Daddy Linux Live, is a show we do every Saturday night. We've moved it to 9 p.m. Eastern. And it's basically, like you said, it's a community that gets together, just a bunch of regular Linux users. Now, we have a vast group of people. So there's new users. There's people that haven't used Linux for very long. There are users that are really good with Linux. There are command line junkies, and there are all the way up to a couple of people are devs for distros. So we have a great bunch of people, and we get together with no agenda. It's just us getting together every Saturday night on YouTube and just talking.
And this is something that you can join in Linux. There's are you still using the Zoom client?
We're still using the Zoom client.
And so this is it's a free client. You can just download it, and I assume that you absorb the cost for the paid account thing to connect all of the people. So all they have to do is join your meeting ID.
Correct.
And it's just an opportunity for everybody to come together. And I see the chat room is talking about starting a Linux user group. One of the nice things about what you're doing is it's kind of a it's a weekly Linux user group for people that want to hang out at night. Obviously during the day there's unplugged, but if you're like me and you work during the day, the weekend may be the only time that you have off. And so Saturday night, that's a really cool way to spend a Saturday evening. Just fire up the computer, plug in a microphone or a webcam if you want, and join that meeting.
And there's no pressure in it. And that's the key, because, the Linux community can be great, and sometimes it's not always great. And so there's no pressure as far as you don't have to be a certain Linux user to be in the group. It's anybody can join. All I ask is that you keep it family friendly.
Yeah, and that's something that we're big on here as well. There's really no need for it. And it's funny because I've gotten into this discussion with people before, and they say, well, people that they swear they're more honest. Here's the thing, that there may be some truth to that. I don't really know, but here's what I will tell you. What I will tell you is that I have never ever, not once in the entire time that I've been broadcasting, ever once gotten an email where somebody said, hey, I listened to this particular episode, or I listened to that particular show, and there was a lot of foul language and swearing and stuff like that. And man, that felt like a really honest, straightforward. I've never gotten that email. Do you know what email I get? I would say I would have said I used to get it on a monthly basis. I'd say we're up to a weekly basis now. I get an email that says something to the effect of, hey, I just wanted to let you know the Ask Noah Show is one of the most comfortable shows for me to put on in my van, to put on in my truck, to put on in my car, because I know I can have my 3-year-old, my 5-year-old, my 7-year-old, and I can get them introduced into Linux, and I know that you're going to keep the show family friendly. So, and you're obviously doing the same thing, and people can download this virtual hangout and listen to it as if it was a show, right?
Correct. Yeah. Now, I don't have it in an RSS feed. I don't have it as a MP3 format, but you can obviously download the YouTube video if you'd like.
Right. Yes. Okay. So it's not released as a podcast per se, but you can go stream it online.
Correct.
After the fact, I mean to say.
Yep. And that's the thing that we try to go for is, I've had many comments in the same respect to say that, it's one of the few Linux shows out there that you can just put on and have it play in the background where your family's around, young kids are around, and you don't have to worry about anything because it's going to be clean.
Big Daddy Linux is my guest this hour on the Ask Noah Show. We're talking about community Linux. Hey, Big Daddy, are you okay taking a phone call?
Sure. Why not?
1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. You're on Ask Noah. What's on your mind?
No, it's Chaz. Is it just me, or does this phone call feel brand spanking new for some reason?
It feels brand spanking new. It feels like when you buy a new house and you go step out on the grass and you realize the grass is all yours because you paid off the mortgage, and the grass just feels different. Feels like that.
I'd say so. So first off, got to apologize. I again called Brad Steve for some reason last week.
I know, it just wasn't funny. It wasn't funny to make fun of him twice in a row, though.
Yeah, good point. All right. So anyway, this is kind of a variation on a theme of a discussion we've had in the past before. So, as you know, pretty much every social network is terrible for security, whether it's Facebook or Google Plus or any of the other usual suspects.
Sure.
But I've still got friends who say, oh, let's just use this app for communication, and they look at me funny when I say, well, no, that app's not really secure. We should probably be using Signal or something like that. So my question to you is, do you think they'll ever get to? Do you think people will ever get to the point where they value their security and their privacy enough so that apps like Signal and Proton Mail or things like that become the mainstream as opposed to, just stuff for you and me? And what do you think that event would be if things like Cambridge Analytica from Facebook and the Google Plus data breach can't convince people of that fact?
I'll let my guests go first. Big Daddy Linux, what are your thoughts? Are people ever going to care enough about security and privacy that they're going to make a change?
I would love to think that at some point people will think about privacy more to the point where they make a change. I don't know what it'll take to get there because with, as you said, the Cambridge thing, and there's been many others too. It's not just that. I just have people in a general sense today where, and I'm not talking the educated user, I'm talking the regular person that just opened social media. I don't think it will get to that point where they'll want to make a change until it's too late.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I would say that I'm a little bit more pessimistic. I guess my assumption would be that they're probably not going to change. When we go into IT consulting, we often talk about something called the security triangle. And the security triangle, if you think of a triangle, has three parts to it. It has, and really we're just dealing with two today, but it has security and it has convenience. And what you'll find is anytime you ask a user if they want something to be more secure or more convenient, they're always going to choose for it to be more convenient because people are just naturally self-centered. And what it amounts to really is, if you think about it, it's not really their problem if something gets hacked. That's the IT's problem. And so what you'll find is anytime you ask somebody to choose, they're going to err on the side of convenience, even if it means something being ridiculously insecure. And in IT, we fight that, right? We fight that in circles. You'll go into a facility and you'll tell everybody, all right, we've got new password requirements. And so now they have to be 14 characters, and it has to contain a capital letter, and it has to have an exclamation mark or special character, and it has to have, 15, all this stuff. And what happens? We all know, right? We come in the next day, and there are yellow Post-it notes all over the monitors with people's passwords because it was too difficult for them to remember. So they just gave up, and they decided that was too secure, and it was too inconvenient. And so they made it more convenient by just writing the password out. And one of the lessons that I have tried to lecture other companies on, and even other IT companies with little to no success, is sometimes we have to go ahead and take a step back from security to understand that if we make it too inconvenient, they're just not going to, these companies are not going to follow security practices anyway. And so a insecure 10-character password that's all lowercase and doesn't have any special characters is still more secure than the 64-character password that has numbers and letters and all that stuff, but the guy has the password saved on his desktop in a text document called passwords.txt, right? I mean, you have to look at those, you have to look at the picture holistically, get that 30,000-foot view, and then make a decision. And so, but, not to get too far away from your original point, no, I don't think that you're ever going to get people to care about their privacy. I don't think that you're ever going to really get normal people, average people, to care about the security. I think that they log into Facebook and they like the fact they can see grandma's and grandpa's photos, that they like the fact that their sister or their brother or their kids post stuff of their babies, and if that stuff gets out, that stuff gets out. But hey, at the end of the day, at least we can communicate with Uncle Fred, who we otherwise wouldn't see. And I think that any time you try to put that into a security apparatus, people go, forget it. I like looking at pictures of cute babies.
I think it
I'd
comes
agree
down
with
to
you there. I mean, I would have.
Sorry, go ahead, Chess.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, Big Daddy, it's you.
I was just going to say how, did I lose you guys?
No, you go ahead.
All right. I was just going to say how I would have thought that something like Cambridge Analytica would have been the catalyst that would have started getting people off of insecure networks, but it doesn't seem that that's the case. And I agree with you guys. I think it's either never going to happen or it's not going to happen until apps start building that functionality in by default, or we see some sort of, legislation that says, okay, you have to have this level of encryption in your products, and I don't need to tell you how I would feel about legislating morality.
Right. Well, and then here's the other part to consider, too, that we have to ask ourselves. At the end of the day, we can make stuff as secure as we want to make it, but at the end of the day, Facebook and Google and Apple and all these other companies Amazon have a vested interest in utilizing your private data to make money. And if we make it so secure that they're unable to do that, you undermine their fundamental funding model, and you eliminate their ability to make a profit, thereby eliminating their ability to provide a quote-unquote free service to you, right? So, that question has to be asked, too. Where are you going to draw that line? Let's just say we secure all of this stuff, so it's not getting hacked. Nobody wants that to happen. But that's not going to stop Facebook from harvesting that data. It's not going to stop Google or Apple or Amazon from harvesting that data. That's something that they are going to continue to do, and they must continue to do it in order to offer a price with no money exchanged. So, anyway, great call, Chaz. I appreciate the time. Again, I thanks a lot. You were one of the first callers, I think, for the first couple episodes of Ask Noah. Now you're one of the first callers for our independent syndication, so we appreciate having you. Again, open phone lines 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email live at asknoahshow.com. Big Daddy Linux is my guest this hour. He is the host of Big Daddy Linux Live, or how did you pronounce it?
Biddle.
You do say Biddle, okay. So Biddle, and you can join that Saturday. I think one of these days I'm going to have to make an appearance and come hang out. I hung out in there once and just kind of listened in. I wasn't part of the discussion, but I was streamed it or loaded it in Zoom. I can't recall which, but what I saw was a bunch of really honest, laid-back Linux users. And one of the things that I want to compliment you on that I think you do a really excellent job of is, and I include myself and people that don't do this very well, you're never in show mode. You're never in show mode. You're never, trying to, again, push an agenda or move anything forward, anything like that. It's just a welcoming, very welcoming environment for anybody to show up and just kind of hang out. And I think that's something that even I don't do very well. If I get a caller that's kind of dragging me down, or if there's something that's pulling off topic, I'll dump it and move on. I've been criticized for that a little bit, but at the end of the day, the end product is the show here, whereas I think your end product is to provide a really great experience for those that join you. And so I think that's really unique and not being covered. So I just want to commend you for taking the time to do that. But I want to ask, where did the inspiration come from? Because for a long time, I thought it was something that you had just spun off from Destination Linux. By the way, I should mention, Big Daddy Linux was one of the creators of Destination Linux. He's since moved on to doing bigger and better things, but I had thought that Big Daddy Linux Live was something that had spun up, and then you corrected me, said, no, this is something I've been doing for a really long time and plan to continue to do for a long time to come. Where did the inspiration come from to do that?
Well, originally it started out with me trying to do a first live stream, and if you go back on my YouTube channel, you'll see the first episode of Big Daddy Linux, and it was a terrible, no, as a matter of fact, don't go back and look at that episode because it was terrible. It was just me showing off a distro, actually. And what I wanted to get to was to have people come on and talk about the distro that I was using at the time, because I would stream from that distro. And then the following week, I would install another distro and I would stream from that one. And it went about 4 or 5 episodes, and then we started just skipping the whole distro thing. And I actually, I forget what service I was using to start it out with, but we had our first live chat, and there was like 6 people on. And it was just a bunch of people that had watched my channel before, and I invited them on, and we started talking. And it went for, I think, 3.5 hours.
Wow. So
as time went on, I think it turned into Friday Night Live, because I was trying to find the best day, the best time. And we moved it to Saturday. It was at 10:30, because we have listeners and we have people that join Biddle from Australia, from the UK, from all over the place. So you're trying to get that perfect sweet spot, and there's not really a certain sweet spot there. Yeah. But trying to get the best for them. And now, like I said, it's at 9 o'clock, and we just have a great time talking.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I tell you, as somebody else who has struggled with that time connection, trying to find a day and a time that works for people on both sides of the ponds, man, I tell you what, if you found a sweet spot, it is indeed a sweet spot. Again, chatting with my friend Big Daddy Linux from Biddle, the live stream community hangout that happens on Saturday night. We'll take another call at 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. You can join us by email, live at AskNoahShow.com. You're on Ask Noah. What's on your mind? That's you. Go for
Hello?
it. Yep, that's you. Go for it.
No, I was just wondering your opinion on the like KDE shutting down sudo for apps as a security reason. Isn't we supposed to have an open system and where it should be allowed to be stupid if we want?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I think we've actually talked about this once before on the show. They have replaced that. There's another app. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it has the ability to elevate permissions for applications in KDE, and it's one of those things where I'm never going to tell a Linux developer, I'm never going to tell a Linux community that they're doing something wrong. I think every community should have the freedom and should strive to try something new. And if it works out, the market will show that. If it doesn't work out, people are going to flee your distro, or in this case, your desktop environment. So no, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's worth trying. Maybe we'll learn something. I remember one of the first times I ever used Linux, the very concept of using pseudo privileges rather than being able to just log in as root, because actually it was in Fedora they made that change where you could no longer log in as root and had to do everything through elevating permissions. And it took me a little bit to get the hang of it because I was so used to just when I wanted to do something, I would just run the computer as root. And it was a bad idea. And because the distro designers were wiser than my, at the time, 14, 15-year-old self, whatever it was at Fedora Core 1, because they were wiser than me and because they knew better and had a plan, they taught me how to be a more secure Linux user. And so I just adapted with time. So I don't know. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's okay. 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 855-450-6624. You're on Ask Noah. What's on your mind?
Hey, Noah, a couple of questions. Quick one. As a fellow KDE user, I occasionally get it to have a little glitch. And for some reason it'll hang up and the taskbar won't work, and clicking on the launcher doesn't work. Is there a way to restart Plasma?
Do you have an NVIDIA card by chance?
Negative. This one is Intel graphics.
Man, so you're just going along, and all of a sudden your KDE desktop kind of gives out on you.
Yeah, basically, I think it has to do sometimes with possibly if I'm clicking around and the mouse moves an element from off of the DOM. On a Chrome web page somewhere towards the taskbar, I think that's when it happens. And it just kind of glitches, and it stays like that for 15, 20 minutes or so. And then even the clock stops. And then all of a sudden, eventually it springs to life, and everything I've clicked on and tried to do starts running amok.
I know this is gonna sound like such a stupid question, and I apologize for even asking it. I should know better than to question a fellow nerd, but I have to ask. You're 110% sure that there's no NVIDIA graphics card in that computer?
I am 110% sure. This thing started off life as a Samsung laptop.
I have experienced
aftermarket video card in it.
I have experienced that exact same issue, and I mean exactly down to the clock stopping to work. But for me, it has always been an NVIDIA problem. And the solution, there is no real solution. I haven't found a solution yet. I just put up with it and reload just log out and log back in, and the desktop bounces, and then it comes back. Big Daddy Linux, I don't suppose you've seen this.
I have seen this exact same thing. I've had this happen to me. I don't have an answer, but it has been on an NVIDIA system. So this is something that actually sometimes it will cause the loop of it'll let you back in, but the panel won't be responsive at all, and you'll go to try to log out and you can't, and there's no way to shut it down except do a hard reset. So I don't have an answer.
The chat room is saying K-Start K-Start space plasma shell.
So that's not exactly the way to do it, but there is a way to restart Plasma, and I'll send it to you so you can put it in the show notes.
Oh, great! You want to tell us?
Well, there's multiple. There's like a separate section where the latest version of Plasma 5 has changed what you're supposed to do. So it's better just to have like the link because it's 2 different commands you need to put back to back.
Sounds good. And that's Michael Tennell from Tux Digital joining us in our interactive mumble room. You can join there as well. Actually, that's also where Big Daddy Linux is joining us as well. So thanks, Michael. I appreciate you jumping in there. But
I've got another one if you've got the time.
Absolutely, sir. How can we help?
So I tried reaching out to one of your sponsors, Simple Help, because I'm doing the same sort of thing you're doing.
Okay.
And I really wanted to get rid of that horrible cluster that is TeamViewer. And I reached out to them to see what kind of hardware or requirements it is for their software. And I haven't heard anything back, because I'd like to do it on some sort of hosted cloud service, like either a Droplet or one of the other, I forget the Linode or something like that.
Yeah, as far as, I mean, let me look here. So we're doing exactly that. We're hosting it on a cloud thing of sorts. And it is most certainly not. No, I broke my shell here. It is certainly, yeah. So it's running on a single core, 20 gigabytes of storage space, 512 megabytes of RAM. So that's essentially really all the Simple Help quote unquote server is doing. It's really just brokering a connection, right? So your client, whatever you install the agent on, is pings in that server, says, here I am, here's a UDP port, connect to me if you need me, here I am, and it just checks in once every minute or so. And then the technician console goes and says, hey, give me a list of all the people that checked in. And so then the server responds and goes, well, here's all the people that have checked in, and here's the guys that they've missed their heartbeat, as we call it. And so you might want to check on those guys. I haven't seen them in a while. And when you go to establish a connection, you go and double click on the machine you want in the technician console. And on the server end, it'll say, okay, give me a UDP port that we can pass through the firewall so we don't have to do any firewall magic. And then it will, then the connection is actually between the technician, the encrypted connection between the technician console and that remote agent. And so that they're direct. And where that's super advantageous is we work at a large client. They've got hundreds and hundreds of machines. But they're all on site. They're all inside of one network. And so the ability I wouldn't want it going out over the internet and coming back in. That would be terrible. It's way, way better for us to establish a local LAN connection. And of course, then we get all of the great things that come with having a direct gigabit connection. So yeah, you don't need anything super robust. I have CentOS 7, latest version of CentOS 7 running. I just have that running on a OVH deal for $235 a month or something.
Yeah. I was looking to build a new workstation for myself, and I didn't want to also have to put up for a server or anything like that. So, it's nice to know that I was figuring in a pinch I might have to run it on my own machine and host it out through the firewall, and it wasn't really something I really had wanted to do. But thanks, Noah. You have yourself a good one. Yeah,
you too, sir. Thanks a lot. Again, phone line's 855-450-6624. Are you okay taking a couple more calls, Big Daddy?
Sure.
I appreciate having you. It's kind of great to. What are you using for remote access? Are you a TeamViewer guy? Are you a VNC guy? Played with the Simple Help at all?
I don't really have any reason to mess with TeamViewer or anything like that. So. That's kind of out of my league. Yeah, and I mean, to be fair about it, I actually I don't really have a problem with TeamViewer. My only issue, my issues with TeamViewer come down to two. One is their sales department screwed me at a very, very vulnerable time. I reached out to them and said, we have a large client. We're going to manage them entirely remotely. It was the first client we were doing that represented a large capital interest to us. They said, go ahead and try TeamViewer for 30 days.
If you like it, then you can go ahead and buy a license. We made it like 8 hours into that 30 days, and they shut us down because there were too many simultaneous connections or something. And I just got mad and went to Simple Help, and it's been so great. I've not looked back since. Matt calls from Arizona. Hey, Matt, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hello, Noah. And by the way, may I say that it is fantastic that you folks in the central Arizona, the central time zone, have moved to a same time. Now I can call you after work. Anyways, so I installed Fedora 28 the other day and went through the steps of updating it to Fedora 29. And now I can't even log into the system. I go to enter my password, and it locks up as soon as I hit login.
Ruh-roh. Are you using Wayland?
To recover is a hard reset.
Are you using Wayland?
No, at least I don't think I am.
Man, okay.
And
so
we're KDE.
So we're on KDE. We're on. You said you're on 29, or you're trying to upgrade to 29?
I have completed the 29 upgrade. I went through. I updated the 28 system, downloaded the 29 software, did DNF system update reboot, and was able to get back into the system after that. But since then, since shutting down the system after that initial reboot, I have not been able to get back in.
Did you use DNF or did you use FedUp to upgrade from one version to the other?
Is that the GUI application?
No, it's it's command line. So it would be the command syntax would be. I'm not in front of a computer. I don't do this terribly often, but it's something like FedUp space TAC network space 23 or whatever the next version you want to go to. In your case, 29, I guess. And
no, it was all through DNF.
Okay, so here's the thing. I actually just got done helping a buddy of mine. In fact, I'm guessing he's probably listening. He gave me a call and he's like, yeah, I need some help updating my system. I log into the thing and it's Fedora 21, I think. And I was like, oh, dear goodness, oh man, this is going to be fun. I'll be darned if we didn't get that sucker up to date and we just went one at a time. Network 22, network 23, network 24. And so we worked our way up. And not that we never ran into an issue along the way. And to that extent, so that would be step one, is try using FedUp and see if from the command line you can, instead of just doing it straight through DNF, if FedUp will take care of something that DNF is missing. And maybe they do the same thing. I guess I don't know exactly how the back end of that works. I just know that I just recently did this and started from 21, so your situation sounds infinitely less complex. But the other thing I might try, if you have time, Matt, is when you reboot, you should be able to boot into Fedora 28, right, in the bootloader?
I think I probably should be able to. I haven't tried booting into that yet.
Yeah, if you should be able to do that, and if you
get home.
Well, when you get home, when it's safe to do so, obviously, don't do this while you're driving or anything. But when you get a chance, I never know. When you get a chance, take a look at that and see if when you boot into 28, if you can rerun the upgrade script and see if that goes.
I will see if I can do that.
Big Daddy, you got anything to add or any thoughts?
No, it sounds like a NVIDIA Wayland issue to me.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But when he said that he was on X, I
don't know if I have the NVIDIA hardware because it's all on the main board. I think it's an Intel system, but I could be entirely wrong.
Yeah, give it a shot. Take a look at it, Matt, and let us know. And obviously, you're welcome to always give us a call back. We're here rather regularly on Tuesday nights. 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Max from Minnesota. Hey, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, sir. How can we help?
I have a home lab, and I'm recently come across 2 extra machines, and I kind of wanted to make because right now I just have some VMs running, but I would like to make like a VM cluster per se. What would you do for the storage so I can move VMs across hosts without having to, say, change config files.
That's a great idea. Yeah, it's a fantastic idea. Fantastic idea. So what I have, well, I guess I'll ask Big Daddy Linux, you played with virtualization much?
I have a couple of VMs, but I usually, well, what I end up doing is I ended up buying an SSD drive and using that as a data drive, and that's where I keep them all.
Nice. So you're running them all on one machine?
Pretty much, yeah.
So I'll tell you what I'm doing, Max, and you let me know if this would work for you. I'm using Virt Manager, and I'm using libvirtd. It's just the stock hypervisor that comes with Linux, and you can install it in about 30 seconds or less just by issuing like 4 or 5 commands. And one of the nice things that libvirtd will do for you is when you click on the host, one of the things that you'll be able to do is under the information tab, you're able to choose which hypervisor host you want that virtual guest to exist on. And so you can essentially create you can have, like, I have a hypervisor at my house. I have one at work. We've got a cloud hypervisor that we run a lot of customer images on. And I can move those guests in between any one of those virtual hosts that I want. I just right click on the guest, I click on migrate, I choose the new host I want it to go to, and I click migrate, and it will move that entire VM guest from one hypervisor to the other. It'll do it seamlessly, and so the software will take care of all of that for you, and you just do it in a nice little GUI. Now, there obviously are ways to do that. Like, let's say you want to go, like, maybe from DigitalOcean onto your own infrastructure, from your own infrastructure back to DigitalOcean. There are ways using some conversion tools that you can convert a regular disk to a QCOW2 file. A QCOW2 file is the virtual storage unit that is used in most hypervisors, at least the good ones. And so you're able to convert to... Sorry, go ahead.
So I was thinking, I'm doing exactly that with KVM, and I guess what I was wondering is, does that still work with, say, like an external storage, like the VMs connecting to a NAS also on my infrastructure?
I see.
My home lab.
So you're more concerned about the...
I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah, sure. So you're asking about the storage component, not necessarily the hosting component.
Yes, exactly.
So I'll tell you how our work one is probably most applicable to this situation. So the one that we have here actually at the shop is it's a virtual host, but we have another Dell R710 that all it is our storage server. And it just got loads and loads and loads of storage. And we actually run our storage server on FreeNAS, and we have a ZFS pool, because if you want a really good storage server, that's what you're using. You're using ZFS. And what we're doing, Max, is we actually have an NFS share from that FreeNAS box over mounted on our virtual hypervisor. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to store our VM images on ZFS, running on FreeNAS, and take advantage of all the things that ZFS has to offer without having to... and it's really not very complicated. As far as the virtual machine sees, it just knows that var / I forget the exact path, is whatever it is, but it just knows that path is mounted, is an NFS mount, and our storage server just knows that it's being stored data. So that's a pretty straightforward way to do that. And I see Brandon is in our interactive mumble room. Brandon, do you have anything to add to this conversation?
Well, I didn't hear the question.
What would your recommendation to a user that wants to use libvirtd but wants to store their data on a separate machine or a separate storage array?
So I would probably do exactly what you said with you have 2 or more hypervisors attached to the same one. So that you can do live migration between those hosts. So whether if it's iSCSI or NFS, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So that's exactly how I do it.
Awesome. So there's 2 votes in our direction, Max. Does that help you out?
Yeah, and then one other quick thing. For, say, so one of my VMs is a Plex VM, and that is connected to my NAS that has all my media on it. Would that stop that from being able to migrate to another host, having that network share added in?
Well, it's not going to stop you from migrating to another host, but obviously if you're let's say have an NFS share to your Plex box where all of your movies are stored, and you move that virtual guest to another host that doesn't have access to that same network, obviously your Plex system is going to break, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's all I needed.
Okay, great. Thanks for the call. Yep, no, thanks for the call. 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email live at asknoahshow.com. Our guest this hour is Big Daddy Linux, streaming at Biddle. He streams live content every Saturday. You can join the conversation. If somebody wanted to be a part of that discussion, if somebody wanted to be a part of that program, do you guys have a website, or how do they join? Did we lose it?
You can get more information on the show at bigdaddylinux.com, and that'll have all the links to YouTube and the details and instructions for Zoom. But the Zoom link will be in the YouTube description. It stays the same every week so that it's easy for everybody. And like I said, as long as you keep it family friendly and want to talk about Linux, come join us.
Now, somebody is going to ask, so I'll just ask you on the air, why Zoom? Why not a more free, whatever the term is, more free and open source alternative? Why Zoom?
Well, this goes back to even at the beginning of Destination Linux, where I have tried pretty much every client, web browser add-on, web browser website, every single one of them to try to get the same quality and the same settings, that the same control that Zoom gives you. And I didn't originally start out on Zoom. I actually started out on a website, and appear.in was actually the website that we used to use when we first started Biddle. And there's just no comparison. We have tried Jitsi. We have tried tons of every single open source or non-open source program we have tried. And we always come back to Zoom.
Isn't it amazing how the rest of the community is always going to know how you should do your job better than you know how to do your job? And I try to stay pretty positive on the show. So this is not meant to drag anything down or drag anyone through the mud or anything like that. But there was a time when I was doing another podcast and we did a video show, and it was amazing how many people would write into the show as if I was the dumbest person on the face of the planet, and obviously, if I only knew about this one tool that this person spent 30 seconds Googling and came across, obviously that was the answer to all of our problems. And it was, it's one of those things. It's like you just sit back and you're like, you don't think I know about that? You don't think I've tried that? You don't think you think we're that dumb? That's one of those things that just really, really grates on me. So I'll just ask you now, because undoubtedly somebody out there is going to listen to this episode and go, well, if he tried this piece of software, he would know that works a lot better than Zoom. And like you said, you've tried it. It's not that you're not willing or not able or too stupid to find another piece of software. You've tried it and you found that Zoom is the best option out there.
Well, we always, in the Biddle community, we always tell people, use what's best for you.
Sure.
Okay. And again, I wish I could have back the amount of hours that I spent testing out other clients and programs, and it was a nightmare to test everything that was out there and then come up with nothing. And like I said, we always ended up back on Zoom. So yeah, that question comes up pretty often, but all I can say is it works better than anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, I agree.
Oh, you were going to correct him and then you realized he was right?
No, the whole time I was just going to agree anyway. Because Zoom is actually probably the most reliable thing I've used on Linux for this. Because I've done it where you could record it for hours and it still is solid the entire time. Whereas I've had issues just trying to join Jitsi and just the microphone not even working. It's like there's so many issues with pretty much everything else. And with Zoom, while they have some weird stuff, for the most important part of the reliability, it's fantastic.
And go ahead.
It's the best out there, and I think part of the reason why, it started out was the video aspect of it. And this goes back to Destination Linux too. The video aspect of the show is, to me, one of the most important things, because people can actually connect with you. They get to the point where they know you even though they don't know you, because they can connect with that person they see in front of the screen. So many people, when I was on Destination Linux, wanted me to stop doing the video part and just do audio, because it was too hard. The video is is a headache. It really is. But I think it's so important to be there, and Zoom, like I said, has been the best.
And so to your point, when we were looking at launching this show, one of the things that I just knew early on that we were just going to do is we just weren't going to include camera-style video elements. And it's not that I'm not smart enough or don't have, or am too lazy or anything like that. It's just that the amount of work to produce a proper video show is literally 10 to 15 times what it is to produce an audio show. And it would fundamentally limit my ability to go do things on location. When I used to do LAS, to be able to do LAS the way we did LAS required 3 Pelican cases full of equipment. We'd have to ship them, a week ahead of time. And then we would have to try to assemble all of this stuff. It would take about an hour and a half to set up and an hour and a half to tear down. I've gotten it down to now I have literally, when I was in Minneapolis and forgot my laptop, I've done a show with the borrowed laptop and my cell phone and a headset that plugs into my cell phone. And I would put the audio quality of that show, that particular episode, against any episode that we've ever done or any episode that anybody else has ever done, because we have honed our process around audio only, and that's just something you can't do with video. But to both of your credit, I mean, at the end of the day, the Zoom client runs on Linux, right?
It runs on Linux, and it also runs on phones, so you can connect to Biddle on your phone if you'd like to.
Yeah, and
it's not the best audio, but
right, yeah, and so to that point, let me save you a headache. If you're going to join Biddle, do yourself the courtesy, have the respect for the show, have the respect for your own name to spend the $15 to get a USB headset and use it. Don't try and connect with your laptop microphone. Don't try and connect with your cell phone mic. Spend the $10-15, get yourself a little Logitech USB headset. Everybody will thank you and you'll sound a lot better. But again, go to your point, back to the video thing, we know that less than 7% of any given message is communicated with just words. And 55% is communicated through nonverbal elements, and then there's something like 38% is with certain vocal elements, so inflection, stuff like that. But the vast majority of communication is nonverbal, is things that we see. And so your ability to connect with Zoom really fundamentally gives that show a different feel, I think.
Yeah, it really makes the show complete to me, where you can, like I said, we have different users from all walks of life, and to see everybody, it's amazing to connect with people that way. It's not just you're not just chatting with somebody on a chat program, or you're not just hearing somebody on a phone or on a show. You're seeing somebody, you're interacting with them. I think it's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, Big Daddy Linux, BigDaddyLinux.com, on Twitter at Big Daddy Linux. Thanks so much for taking the time to be here on the Ask Noah Show. We'll get you back on the program real soon.
Awesome, Noah. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. Feel free to continue to hang out in the Mumble Room. You're more than welcome. Again, 855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. So I want to talk about a new development in the Linux and mobile space. We've got just a couple minutes left in the hour, but this is an important story. I want to make sure that we have some time to get to it. So I want to take you back a couple of years, back to 2017. And when the Samsung released the Galaxy S8, they also released an accessory called the Samsung DeX, DE-X. And what it was a docking station, essentially, that gave you a modified Android desktop experience, and you had full access to all of your apps, save documents, your ability to reply to text messages, everything. But you got all of that on your phone with a much bigger screen and the ability to interact with all of these things with a traditional keyboard and mouse. So the Samsung DeX essentially offered all of the I/O that you needed to get a desktop experience on your cell phone. And obviously, one of the reasons for that, one of the things that they were aiming for, one of the things that they were moving towards, was the fact that phones are getting insanely powerful. They're getting to the point where you have a miniature computer in your pocket and people just are not taking advantage of the incredible amount of computing power that they have in their pocket. And now with the advent of USB-C, you plug a single cable in there and you can get Ethernet and HDMI and regular USB and a monitor and all of those kinds of things. So, and Samsung is not the first company to try to do this, right? We have seen all sorts of companies, everything from Motorola to Microsoft to Canonical. A bunch of people have tried to get the desktop experience on the phone. What these companies are learning is something that we said from day one on the Ask Noah show. A proper mobile experience makes for a really crappy desktop experience, and a really fantastic desktop experience is a very poor mobile experience. So, what you have to have is you have to have a mobile experience that has the ability to transform into a proper desktop experience when you've connected the requisite peripherals. And so that's what Samsung is trying to do here. And what they have found was that it was reasonably successful. People were kind of taking off with it. Didn't quite have the adoption, I think, that they would have liked it to have, but it's not everybody that is saying, well, I'm getting rid of my laptops and going to phones. But when you look at what the market is doing, the desktop market, and when I say the desktop market, I mean traditional desktop users and laptop users. And that can be on Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. But all three of those, that market is declining. And more people are turning to their smart device, their smartphone or their tablet as their primary computing device. And I'm starting to run into this in the field with clients. They're saying, hey, you know what? I don't really need a computer. I don't really need a laptop. I'm fine with just my laptop or with just my cell phone. So what can these companies that make these laptops and cell phones do to further capitalize on that? Well, the answer is make them more useful. And so they started to ask, what is it that people continually go back from this device that they are otherwise happy with and go back to the laptop, go back to the desktop? And you know what they found? Developers. Developers go back to the laptop and go back to the desktop. So then Samsung started to ask, well, why is that exactly? Because the ARM chips that are in these phones are actually fairly powerful. People like Linus Torvalds himself are very excited about the future of the ARM platform and would like to do some of their work on ARM. Similarly, you see companies that are building laptop docks essentially for the Raspberry Pi. You see other companies like the Pinebook that are developing ARM-based laptops. So there are developers that are interested in using ARM architecture. Why aren't they using Samsung DeX? The answer was simple. Linux. Developers want Linux. And developers had continually said they wanted Linux, and it's why every company in the world is starting to respect that. Google looked around and saw a bunch of MacBooks and said, you know what we need to do? We need to make Linux available on Chrome OS. And so they did. And what did they find? A bunch of developers said, hey, I could actually do my work on a Chromebook if it had access to Linux. If you talk to Google employees, what you find is all of their tooling is based around the Chrome web browser. And so as long as it has the ability to run some basic Linux commands, and they have access to a proper shell and some of their development tools, and the ability to SSH into a powerful Linux box to do compiling of code and those kinds of things, there's nothing wrong with a Chromebook to do development. Then you look over at what Dell is doing. They looked up and said, hey, we can compete in this market too. Instead of trying to make cheap, crappy Linux computers, what if we made the creme de la creme, end-all, be-all Linux laptop? And so they released the XPS. What happened? Sold like wildfire. Went back to the sales department and said, what are we going to do with this information? They said, all right, hardware enable everything under Linux. And so if you go to Dell now, with the exception of like 2 computers that were custom built for some stupid thing, every computer that you buy from Dell comes with the hardware enablement stack for Linux. You can use it. And all of these companies together have a cumulative effect because now they're starting to push updates and starting to work with projects like FW Update to get those firmware updates rolled into your package manager. And they're providing real competition to essentially what was the only draw to something like the Crapbook Pro, which was the fact that some developers could use it if you replaced the okay enough terminal that was in it. So Samsung looks and says, everybody has our devices, or at least a lot of people have our devices, and developers are interested in developing on our architecture. We gave them a desktop platform. They're not using it. And what everybody else has told us is that it's because Linux is missing. So this is from 9 to 5 Google. This article outlines how Samsung has released a app essentially for the I think it's the S9 and the Note Tab 4, it looks like. And it's called Linux on DeX. And the idea of Linux on DeX, as you might imagine, is it allows you to run a full-blown Linux operating system right on your tablet or phone. And this is not to be confused with like some hypervisor, some virtual thing that you can hack on to the phone. No. This is like legitimately they are working with Canonical to release. They have a partnership with Canonical to get a special modified version of Ubuntu that will run on your Samsung device if you have this DeX cable or DeX dock. And this, I mean, I got to tell you guys, this is huge. This is fantastic. So the beta is available to open, and we'll have a link for you in the show notes if you want to sign up. The beta to sign up, I think you can do it until December 14th. It looks like. So you want to make sure to head over to podcast.asknoahshow.com/101 and make sure to sign up if you want to participate with this. Obviously, you're going to have a Galaxy Note 9 or a Tab S4. Those are the two devices that are supported. But this, I think this might be the first legitimate actual desktop release of Linux in the mainstream that has a real chance of moving forward. And it's not because I think people are suddenly going to wake up and say, oh my gosh, Linux is so great. No, I don't think that's the case at all. But I very much think that there is a business owner out there. I think that there are traveling salesmen out there. I think there are people like me who are geeks, and they look down and say, hey, I need to buy a new phone. Well, this phone, this tablet, this whatever, this smart device, I can purchase it, and I can run an operating system that I trust. Because at the end of the day, both iOS and Android have advantages and disadvantages, and it just comes down to which devil you prefer. I don't trust either of them. But man, I would trust a custom version of Canonical Ubuntu running on it. Absolutely, I would. Encrypt that sucker with Lux, put my data on it all day long, I would. I'd come here, do my show prep on it, on my phone, plug it into my DeX dock I'd put here in the studio. I use the heck out of that thing. I already have a call in with my cell phone rep, and Telegram, not call, but I sent him a message, say, hey, I need to pick one of these suckers up, so let me know when we can do some business. I absolutely have to play with this, because this is fantastic. This is really cool. And I think that some of those business owners, I think that some of those traveling sales guys, I think people like me, are going to look at this thing and go, you know what, this is a really useful productivity tool. The ability to plug the special cable in, plug into a dock, even if it's nothing more than just being able to type documents, that's fantastic for me. And I'll tell you where the evidence of this is. I can tell you how you can prove this walking through any airport in America in just 30 seconds. Walk into any airport you like and look at anybody using a tablet, and there's one accessory that every one of them has: an external keyboard and sometimes a Bluetooth paired mouse. Every one of them will have that. And the reason is because when you go to do work, all of the apps are there, the software infrastructure is there, the cloud infrastructure is there. All of those things are there and ready to work. But the one thing that's missing, proper input control. And so the ability to expand up to you plug it into a 27-inch monitor, the ability to have a proper keyboard, a proper mouse, that's a game changer. And the fact that Linux is on the bleeding edge of this, the fact that all of these people that work at Samsung are acknowledging that Linux is the way to get these people in, and they're going to push to a developer market, a market that likes playing with stuff, tinkering with stuff, that can utilize Linux and bring out its full potential, that has massive, massive implications. Massive implications. And by the way, just because I like saying I told you so, when is iOS going to release Linux for iOS? Since I keep hearing from everybody that Apple is the best friend to those who really value open source, privacy, and Linux. Don't think that's coming. Hey guys, did you know this episode is available as a downloadable podcast? To subscribe to the feed or download the latest episode, visit podcast.asknoahshow.com. There you'll find not only the latest episode, but all of the articles and material referenced in this episode. You can get the latest, of course, by following us on Twitter at AskNoahShow. Huge thanks to Simon Quigley filling in for Call Screener. We'll be back next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central, AskNoahShow.com.